Good evening. Hello. Hi. Good evening. Welcome. Welcome, everybody. Hi. My name is Corinne Ernie. I'm just a newly appointed chief curator here at the Parrish. But I've been here 6 years, so, I paid my dues. But anyway, so thank you so much for coming out on this rainy weather. We're brightening it up for all of you. I hope you saw the galleries. And it's really an incredible evening for all of us here at the Parrish, because we're celebrating the 125th anniversary of this institution. So yeah, it's been in the village for 115 years, and then it came here in 2012. So I also wanted to say, while we celebrate the anniversary of this institution, I would like to acknowledge that the parish is situated on the ancestral territory of the Shinnecock people who have stewarded this land through the generations. We strive to honor our relationship with the Shinnecock and acknowledge the continued displacement and exclusion of Indigenous peoples as we commit to building a more inclusive and equitable space for all. So thank you. Now, I couldn't think of a better project to celebrate this museum's 125th anniversary than this project called Artists Choose Parrish. It's actually an exhibition series that takes place in 3 parts throughout 2023 and in all the galleries, as you saw. I don't remember in my time that we have actually shown one exhibition in all the galleries, and I think it feels really great. So we invited 41 recognized artists with deep roots to the East End to choose works from the Parrish collection to be shown with their own work. So I have to say that it's been an incredible pleasure and such a learning curve to work with all of these artists who became the curators. So I didn't have to do anything. But the thoughts that went into that, the care, the love that you showed for this place, for the collection, and for all of us, really was mind-blowing. So thank you all to all the artists, and I would like for all of the artists to stand up, all of the artists who are participating throughout the year in Artists Choose Parrish. Please stand up so everybody can see you. Thank you. And so I will be talking to some of them briefly. Just a little bit about the outcome of this exhibition. As you will see, I feel like this is not a quiet, contemplative exhibition. I feel like the walls are talking. And they are revealing the many connections among the artists here on the East End throughout generations and their love for this place and for each other. There are stories of friendship that you will see in the galleries, mentorship, even romance and loss, but also new discoveries of the artists as they went through the collection. They first looked through it online, and then they actually came here. We have most of the works here, which is also unique for a museum to have almost all the collection works here on premise. And then there's the history of innovation and creativity of this place, and I think you saw that in this exhibition. And it continues to happen here, and it continues to resonate worldwide. Just think of all the abstract expressionists who came from this, or many of them who came from this place. So tonight we're celebrating the first of 3 exhibitions with 20 artists, and I'm going to tell you who they are. There's Tony Bechara, Ross Bleckner, Nanette Carter, Pamela Council, Jeremy Dennis, Eric Fischel, Robert Gober, Mary Heilman, Claude Lawrence, Robert Longo, Eddie Martinez, Sam Moyer, Enoch Perez, Ugo Rondinone, Cindy Sherman, Leslie Stratford, Michelle Stewart, Hank Willis-Thomas, Nina Yankowitz, and Joe Zucker. So these are all the artists that you can see now. Then there will be a second part, and that opens on August 19th, and the artists in that show are Marina Adams, Alice Aycock, Via Selmans, Rachel Feinstein, Rolf Gibson, Cherie Hovsepian, Suzanne McClelland, Alex Perlstein, Ned Smythe, Donald Sultan, John Torriano, and Stanley Whitney. And then there's a third part in October that opens on October 28th with Richard Aldrich, Joanne Greenbaum, Virginia Jaramillo, Rashid Johnson, Cause, Mel Kendrick, David Sally, Sean Scully, and Amy Silman. So at this point, there's a lot of thank yous because, as you know, it takes a village to make something like this happen. I want to thank all of our trustees, many of you who are here tonight, and for your enthusiastic support, in particular our co-chairs, Alexandra Stanton and Fred Siegel. So thank you very much for all your support. I also want to thank Monica Ramirez Montagut, our dynamic new leader, who is unfortunately currently out of the country, so she can't be with us tonight, but she's here in spirits. And a special thank you to my team, the associate curators, Caitlin Halloran and Brianna Hernandez. Where are you? Because you went above and beyond. Please stand up. Please. See, they're even sitting together. So, Registrar Chris McNamara, I think you're here tonight. I saw you earlier. Preparator Robin Klopfer and her team, Carrie, Lisa, and Ward, and they really went beyond, all above and beyond for this exhibition. I want to thank all the donors for their generous support of this exhibition, the estate of Mildred Bryn, Bank of America, Stephen Maringoff in honor of Robin and Fred Siegel, Sandy and Stephen Pearlbinder, Agnes Gund in honor of Dorothy Lichtenstein, Jennifer and Sean Cohen, Susan and Timothy Davis, Alexandra Stanton and Sam Natapov, Fern and Leonard Tesler, Jacqueline Brody, the Evelyn Toll Family Foundation, Martha McLanahan, the Herman Goldman Foundation, Carol Server and Oliver Frankel, Fred Schmelzer, and Scott and Margot Ziegler. So thank you so much for making this happen. And now I'd like to invite Eric Fischer, Nanette Carter, and Nina Yankowitz to join me for a conversation about 30 minutes, and then we're all going back to have drinks and enjoy the art. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. I want to start with asking you what made you choose what you chose, and what did you see that surprised you, and why did you do it the way you did it? And I think I want to start with you, Nina, because I think your room is the most unusual, maybe, outrageous. It's the room where you have the platform walking up, you have works up on the ceiling as if they're tumbling down, you can lay on chair lounges, and something you probably never see in a museum. So could you just tell us a little bit about how you came up with that concept? And please use the microphone, because we're recording this.
Okay. Is there you can hear? Okay. Well, it was a series of visits to the collection online, and then another series of visits actually going in and seeing the artworks in the collection that really inspired me to come up with the installation I did. I really took at word what the chief curator here had written about really extending the lens, seeing works in a new way, extending it for the 125th anniversary going forward, that visitors to the museum can see the works in another way. Bringing it up, out, and around was the way I interpreted this. And I thought that it would be very interesting to work on changing the way people view art in space. If I did not have a chief curator here who was very open to these ideas, I don't know that this installation would have happened.
I know at first we were like, I don't know if we can do this.
I annoyed the heck out of these people. Oh my God. First I had chairs were sliding up and down the walls and cars driving around.
Yeah.
But I wanted to change the viewing perspective just as when you think about this in the old days when Donna DeSalvo was here and she did A Museum Looks at Itself, she was opening up the whole way that museums show art, mostly American art, leaving out a lot of the other cultures. And she really opened up that dialogue. So from my perspective, this is many years ago too, I was very interested in what she was doing. And she had worked a lot with Maurice Berger, who was also a very interesting art historian, who was into race and the ways in which museums show artworks that are just from a very small amount of artists from a whole host of cultures. And at any rate, just to go back to this, when I went to visit the collection, I didn't exactly know what I was looking for, but I knew one thing, that I wanted to, as I say, change the viewpoint, the ways in which the visitors would look at art. I wanted to change how art was installed, for just expanding on different ways. Not that one way is better than another, but really widening the lens, really opening it up. When I started seeing the works from the collection, it again, online is one thing, but when you see them in the real, I was completely overtaken with so many artworks, and I realized that this way of, from my perspective, my interest of how work is being viewed in America now, because we are here now in America, and expanding and stretching that, I felt that I was going to learn from the pieces, which I did. I didn't go in thinking, oh, I'm going to have a Chuck Close.
Well, it's interesting.
artwork.
I wanted to ask you about that. So you chose a Chuck Close self-portrait, very big, and you have this chair right in front.
Right.
So you're kind of like also telling the viewer to interact in a certain way with the artwork, which a museum normally doesn't do, right? So I think
Right.
that's really interesting.
I wanted you to be able to sit face to face, sit on a chair, and again, works are in collaboration. My works with art from, or my design in terms of the installation, in keeping with the other works that I chose from the collection. And yes, it was very important to me to be able to have this chair that I had made, this slipped cover granite chair, really heavy chair, sit down close, face to face with Chuck Close's self-portrait. And for me, it was, I saw so much in those eyes and in that face that I never would have seen otherwise.
Right.
And other walls, each wall I made a story, I had a story to tell that was told because of what the work gave me. Whoops, it's going.
Yeah.
I don't know why it's going other. Okay. I wanted to create with the wall, for example. There was I wanted the walls and the floor to engage the viewers in a different way. Can ask. I mean,
And it certainly does. We'll come back to that.
Yes.
I want to hear from Nanette. What inspired you? Your room has a lot of abstract works, and
That's what I create. That's
yep.
right.
So,
But like Nina said, looking at works on your laptop, is one thing, but to come in and to see them is another. I chose around 30 works, thinking I would probably edit once I came into the museum. And that wasn't the case. Every time they brought down a piece of work, I was just amazed. I loved it, the color. I was after vibrancy. I was after conversation. I was thinking about how to hang as I was selecting these pieces. But again, I had a feeling I would probably narrow it down to about 15 or so, and I couldn't. I only edited one piece. And it was like Christmas time. Every time they brought a piece down, I felt like it was an offering or something. It was just to see the actual piece and, the pearl fine and these pieces I had not seen. I ended up choosing, luckily, several women who've been in the collection for many years and have never been shown. Gertrude Green, who was the wife of Balcom Green, has 2 absolutely superb collages, stunning work. She was a sculptor, and this had never been on the walls of Parrish. I have a friend here you all may know, Almond Zygmunt, whose pieces are here in the collection, have never been seen. Most of the works are women, because as a child, I used to come to the Parrish, and it was all white men. And so I fell in love with the works. It wasn't a thing of, actually at first I must say, it wasn't a thing of me looking for white women or black women. I wanted to see strong, dynamic work. I'm a colorist. I'm interested in color. And I think that it shows in the dialogue between the works as you walk through. I ended up taking on 2 pieces of sculpture. I have a Betty Parsons, which I think is absolutely stunning.
It's interesting. A few artists show up in different choices. So Betty Parsons is one of them. Louisa Chase is another one.
Elizabeth Murray
Elizabeth,
also. And then I have the Fred Wilson, which I think is really a stunning piece also. On either side of my work, flanking my work, are 2 absolutely gorgeous Romare Beardens, and I did get a chance to meet him. I actually was in a show that he curated, and as a young black woman, 10, 11 years old, he was probably the very first black collage artist I had ever seen. He was in Look magazine, he was in Ebony magazine back then, I'm talking, the 70s. So to flank his work, have his work on either side of my work was just, I had to do it. And next to his work is Frank Wimberly, a wonderful collagist, who I actually grew up living right down the street from here in Sag Harbor. And I can recall going to his home and seeing his paintings and his collages. And he was probably, and again, it was around 12 or 13, probably the first black artist that I saw collaging with abstraction. And just stunning works. His collages are amazing. I'm a person who loves this idea of building. And as a collage artist, I really feel that's what you're doing. You're taking pieces and literally building your image. And there's something about the edge, whether it be a decal edge, showing the thickness of the paper, maybe there's wood that you're collaging. So there's a slight relief. There's a physicality that I love. So I also have Ray Johnson, another collage artist from Sag Harbor, like myself. And so these were people I'd been looking at for years, Charlotte Park. And so to be able to put them up and exhibit them along with my work is an honor.
Well, it's interesting because you chose both like friendships or mentors, but also just a kinship that you felt to the form. There's a mix of all of that in those works.
I think of Elizabeth Murray as someone using these bulbous, cartoon-like shapes, and sometimes I do also.
Yeah.
And so this was someone I'd been looking at over the years. Also, of course, her shaped canvases, which were stunning. Mm-hmm. Just the engineering of those canvases alone was stunning. So yeah, this was very exciting, very exciting.
Thank you, Nanette. Eric, you regale us with all these incredible women that are staring back at the male artist. Can you talk a little bit about
what more could a guy want, right?
Yes. Can you talk a little bit about your your choice and the way you integrated your own way. I have to say it was really interesting hanging the works with you, and I observed you, and it was incredible the way you moved the things around, and I think it's just perfect.
I entered the vaults not knowing what I was looking for, right? Just looking to see what was there. And over, a period of time of pulling things out, looking, thinking, whatever, certain things started to emerge. And one of them was, one coming from the sort of long history of collected works, donations or whatever that you're in possession of. And again, like you were saying, Annette, hadn't been seen in forever or a long time or something like that. So the idea of ventilating some of that excited me. The sort of preponderance of social portraits, portraits of people of means, was something that struck me as well, both in terms of the historical narrative of this area we live in, and also the way that what was striking within that context was how present the women were in their portraits, and that the staring back was something that didn't feel victimized in any way. It seemed like I'm looking for a word and I'm losing it, but there was a tacit agreement that between the person being depicted and the painter capturing them that I found compelling. There was a nice range of characters within that group, and I also felt very much like a lot of what they were doing was something that I also do and have to do and try to figure out how to do and stuff. And so I was choosing kind of randomly. A lot of the artists, I still don't even know their names. I mean, I went with the pictures, I liked the paintings, but I didn't commit to dates and names in a certain way. So clearly I'm not a historian. But when you talk about the installation, you'd set it up in a certain way that had a logic to it. But when I walked in, I couldn't understand why I had chosen these works. And not that I'd articulated it to myself, but just that when I was seeing them, they weren't talking to me as a way that I would narrate the experience.
I could tell you had to rediscover them,
and so
you
I
did.
had to rediscover them. Yeah. And there were certain things that made sense in terms of like the Robert Henry standing portrait against that very flat black ground. I find compelling. It's in a long line of painting strategies, where the artists are simplifying the backgrounds, etc. This one had a quality of daring in its simplification.
Well, and you paired them with works of your own that are very daring. I mean, in a way, you paired it with the portrait of your wife, April.
Maybe more daring in another way than
definitely. Different times.
Well, actually, I'm glad you're talking about this because a painter deals with all different layers of significance in their work. One of them is, how do I reduce information and still make it alive? And with the Henry, you're dealing with a head a much sketchier scarf, and then two hands floating in this blackness. There's no table there, but you know it's resting on the table. The other hand has got a kind of tension to it that's signaling a different relationship to the moment. And it's set against this black background. I thought, well, this has a move towards modernism in a really interesting way. And at the same time, there's these. I didn't even realize I was doing this, but the long wall has a start, middle, and an end that's punctuated by three specific paintings. One is a painting of a young girl who's kind of one of the few that's not looking out at you. She's looking away or towards something else, and she's prepubescent, and she doesn't quite know where she is in her world, and what expectations or her own body, etc. And then in the middle of the wall is a young woman, maybe 20-something, 18-something, that is dressed in a costume as a chorus girl with a red hat on and a much sexier blouse and stuff. And so it's sort of starting to be, a sexualized person. And then at the end is a gorgeous portrait of a fully developed, fully self-possessed, physical woman's body, sexy body, in this portrait of Consuela, I think is her name. And so they're like a subtext of that whole wall of women being and seeing in the world, seeing and being seen.
Right. And I feel like with your choices, you're telling a story of portraiture. You're really looking at how, and especially portraiture of women, that oftentimes were painted by men, obviously. And I mean, that's always, you're always exploring gaze, voyeurism, society. And I think you're telling a whole range of stories since like the mid-19th century to today. And editing is everything, right? So making the right choices.
I think that we might all agree that seeing the world is complicated. And you see through your eyes, you see things on so many different levels of desire and fear and engagement and confidence and, whatever. And so, as a painter painting that, all those choices are present. You're painting somebody, they're sending you a signal about where they're at in their world, in their bodies, in their station, et cetera, et cetera. And you engage that dialogue and struggle with the meaningfulness of their life and the meaningfulness of my life in relationship to it.
Exactly. Yeah, I want to pivot a little bit and talk about this area and what it means to you. You all have different connections, stories with the East End and the Parrish, and I just wanted to address that a little bit and see what has been your relationship with the Parrish, and what do you wish to see here, and just talk a little bit about that relationship and also the community here.
You want me to start? Okay. Okay. You're good. Okay. I've always been very fond of the Parrish. As I was mentioned before, I used to come all the time when Donna DeSavo was here. I thought a lot of the directors, over the years, everyone brought something new to expanding the Parrish. I thought it was a place where you could go and feel that you're going to see art from the community, also art not always from people that live here, but you're going to see a context of art and be able to sit and talk about it with the artists. In New York, it's pretty busy, and when I was younger, yes, we used to meet at bars in the '60s, and blah, 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 and we would talk. The artists would we would speak, but as years move on, the art world has expanded, and we're older, and you don't go out as much, or except to your, you of course you go out and see your friends' exhibits, and you still get together socially, but it's not the same dynamic as almost like a salon type thing. And here, it was so easy. You could talk to anybody. You could talk to any curator or museum director and not feel you're hitting on somebody. You're having conversations. The artists would be very open about talking, and I really liked that. And I had many friends from here, artists and architects, who I spent a lot of time with and over the years, and that's been very special to me.
Thank you.
Well, I started to come to the parish when I was around 12 years old. My mother would take us from Sag Harbor. We would go to the parish, and then we'd go to the library, which was right there. And she loved Hildreth's store, which is still there.
Still there.
But this is what we did, and we did it just in that way. We would go to the, park in the parking lot, go to the parish, go to the library, and then go to Hildreth's. But I remember seeing the Fairfield Porters, and I just remember that beautiful brick building and the sculpture that was always outside. And I always had this, aspiration of one day showing my work here. I'd been making art since I was like 9 years old, and my parents saw that this was my love and allowed me to have a studio in our house. I grew up in Montclair, New Jersey. We would come out to Sag Harbor in the summer. But I really enjoyed seeing the abstract art, of course. For me, it was this idea of being inventive and creative and making new worlds, and that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to create new worlds, these portals into another place. And I think as a child, that's what excited me so much. I also remember, and this was probably later in the life of the old building, I saw for the first time Carrie Mae Weems.
Yep.
There was a very small show, and maybe I heard people going, yes, they saw it also. She hadn't shown out here at all, and not so much in New York either, I think, at that point. She was really from the West Coast. But it was an interesting small room that they gave her, though, of her works, and these were basically Polaroids. And I don't know if any of you have seen those Polaroids, but she was talking about her family. And that show really stands out for me because it was the first time I saw a black woman exhibiting here. And so what I'm seeing today is just this whirlwind of a change. And I think it's been needed. I see the excitement that it's bringing. I happen to be in the show that Alicia Longwell curated, which I believe was the first all-female exhibition here, and it was abstract artists.
Yeah, abstract expressionist women.
Yes, and this was 2021.
Yep.
So it's late in the season, but it's here, it's coming.
Right.
Things are changing. I've been told that they have an annual winter exhibit of the student work coming out of the high schools and elementary schools here. If you've never come to see the show, you have to. It is so amazing and dynamic and just filled, action-packed, sculpture, painting, drawing, printmaking, and they do it salon style, so the walls are packed with work, and you feel so good. There's hope. These young people have gone through so much with COVID, climate change. I taught at Pratt Institute, and I can tell you, I saw such a change in my students over the 20 years. We're going through so many problems in this nation, and to see the vibrancy, to see portraiture, to see abstraction, to see it all, photography. So I think that you all are trying to build a great community here, opening it up. I know that you're showing more of the Shinnecock artists. Hispanic artists, and it's time. And I think because of that, you're going to bring in a whole new population. It's going to be a whole nother group. And so it's very exciting to see this. Again, I'm 69 years old, so when I say I was coming here when I was 12, we're talking a half a century ago, okay? So to see these changes, again, women being shown, my gosh, and women who were painting back in the 50s when the men were painting. I at one point actually thought maybe that, as a young child, maybe there weren't very strong white female painters because they weren't on the wall. I knew why they weren't showing black folks. I knew that. But why weren't we seeing more white female painters in the 60s and 70s? Anyway, I'm pleased that you made this change and that you're opening up the doors to the museum.
Thanks, Nanette. Eric.
Just pretend I'm not here.
Eric, you've built so much in this community. You gotta speak.
Anyway, yeah, I mean, to have actually created the Parrish 125 years ago and it's still here, how? That's what's amazing about it, that it has sustained itself, that, it didn't close down for years and be revisited and, et cetera, that there was always a consistency to it, et cetera. My relationship to it goes back to when it was in Southampton and stuff, included in a show here and there, and then had the opportunity to actually curate a show for the Parrish when it was there, which was a thrill, and then to be honored here and a show with my friends, peers, David Sally and Ross Bleckner, and sort of looking at an aspect of what was going on in the early 80s and stuff. So I've always felt that, that the Parrish was, paying some attention to me in some way that made me feel honored, so. We
have to pay attention to our artists.
Yeah. You got to. That's your job.
Yes, it is. Well said, Eric. Thank you. Yeah.
And I have to say that I don't care how many times I drive by this building, it turns my head every time. There's something that is so declarative in its scale, in its length, and its something about it, the way it occupies the space that. I just think it's a marvelous.
It is, and I have to say, it's a real joy to come here every day to work here. It really is, just to see the building. Now, we don't want the people to just marvel at the building and drive by. We want them to turn left and come in, and I can tell that this is what's happening. Should we take a couple of questions from the audience?
Yeah.
Are you still game? Yeah, a couple of questions, just quickly. Anyone?
Or none.
We're done. Yes, one question. Emma.
So everyone's spoken so eloquently about that sort of look through the collection and this careful selection. And I was wondering that you spoke about the aspect of editing down and that you could not. Was there also a sort of process of taking another look, that sort of like second pass of life, in selecting a work that you never would have thought that you would have been drawn to? And if so, which one is it? Because that's always a fascinating psychological insight.
I let the artist answer, but this is a very good question, and I have to say a lot of these projects changed completely as we went along. And it was a lot of conversations, it was a lot of conversations with the artists and, evolution. So.
Me?
Yeah.
Okay. I actually, in terms of the work chosen, there were 3 works on paper that I thought were fantastic etchings that I didn't include because I couldn't make them feel big enough in the context of what ultimately got hung. So I had to edit them out.
Nina, I know there were lots of changes.
There were
Yeah.
so many changes.
Yeah.
I kept learning more and more from the artworks, and I perceived them in different ways each time I would see them. So as I was developing my ideas about what I wanted to do in terms of altering the viewer's perspectives of viewing art, I had to really look at what artworks were going to really speak out that way and show me the energy that I felt was really completely what I was after. The almost the sounds of the energy, the high pitches, the frenetic paintings or serial images that would just be tilted and connecting one side of a frame to another side of a frame. I really learned so much from it. And it's not that I didn't love so many pieces in the collection. There were so many that I had to edit out. Like, just had to. It wasn't going to work with the concept that I had. And the concept developed from viewing the collection a number of times. And I just want to say, I want to throw this in fast. I really think that the staff here and Corinne are incredible. They totally opened up things, got into my head, and boy, was that a roller coaster ride for them. And they would make suggestions, say, oh, did you see this? Did you look at this? And they were so helpful and wonderful, and I thank you all for that. Thank you. Thank you.
It wasn't just a roller coaster, it was a real joy. It was fun. We had fun. Nanette.
Yeah. Again, I only edited one piece out. I was actually I was happy with each piece I had chosen online.
I think
was
you
really
had it down
surprised.
pretty early on.
I really did.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I also knew where I wanted pieces to go.
Yeah.
I really did.
Yeah.
I had it sort of configured in my head.
Amazing.
Let me just tell you, I've been a professor at Pratt for 20 years. I just retired. And so I've been hanging shows for years. And I love hanging shows. I love this idea of the conversation. How close should a piece be? Maybe we need more space. You know, maybe one can sit over top of another. There's something, it's a puzzle-like kind of attitude. That just, you want it to fit just right. And I enjoy that. It's something about the brain putting and organizing these things. And, you know, I guess it happens with my collages, too. You know, I'm actually setting things up in this organizational aspect. And like building a building, you have to really have a plan there. The plan was in my head. I saw it I remember that night I stayed up late going through all of these images. How many of them are there? Like 5,000 or more that we went through?
3,500, yeah.
It's just, you know, astronomical, right? And I'm just, okay. But things jumped out at me, even on that little screen. Something heartfelt. And
that's hard to do that on the screen.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
But again, when I came in and actually saw them, it was like, yeah, this is it. I've got it. Yeah.
I think that one thing that is remarkable about the show in terms of fun is seeing the way each artist looked at and chose things. And when I see their selections, I'm going, oh, of course. But I didn't see it before I saw their collection. You know, each one, whether it's several of other works by, or whether it's one particular one or two or something, they all made an incredible sense
That's right.
to me that was really exciting. And, you know, it's as Nina's talking about in terms of her strategy for rehanging, rethinking, et cetera, you know, every artist interprets all the other artists according to them, right? It's what we do. We make sense out of every other artist's work by making it makes sense to ourselves of what we do, and you know. So.
Exactly, and some of you chose other peers, you know, who are also selecting, but you chose their works in the collection.
I
so
chose
there's,
dead peers.
There's an incredible dialogue here.
Mine were way dead peers.
Yes, you did. But Nina, I just want to say,
Good for you.
I felt that Nina, you really created a work of art too. That was really, it was about you, but it was a work of art. The installation is your work. So it was just very exciting to see how you had placed them, you know, that dialogue, talking about spacing, you know. You gave pieces that needed the space they needed. But it really was your work too, you know. It wasn't, I mean, you know, for us, Eric, you know, it's one painting after the next, it goes across, a white box, sort of, yeah. But yours was really coming out of the water, so dynamic. It was fun, it was beautiful, yeah.
Let's take one more question, and then I know people want to go and drink. Yeah, sir.
It's not so much a question as it is an acknowledgement that after moving here 30 years ago from California, where I taught, and I have, like you, I've had 40 years of teaching experience.
Okay.
And I've lectured here. What I really like about this exhibition is the eclectic mix, going from paintings from the 19th century. I'm getting ready to do a lecture on Thomas Moran and William Merritt Chase. And I like that Eric picked pieces I had never seen before that were in this collection. I didn't even know about. And then seeing William Merritt Chase's student up on that wall is, because he was a really impactful force on what was going on in America at that time because of his teaching. And I think it's really a credit to all of you for the eclectic mix that you had going on in this exhibition.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, and thank you for joining me tonight.